And Janet Diane Moria Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the first week of December 2016. And it's snowing outside.
I know, we finally have snow here in Michigan.
Yeah, it was a little bit late this year, but here it comes.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's global warming. But
I have global warming.
I have
you
it.
Take my
no, it's my story.
Stop it.
Stop it.
No, you sound like you're 7. I don't like that.
I thought I was 12.
Not today. You're 7, so move forward.
Oh. Should I start? Did you say what you had to say?
I thought that's why you
Okay.
were doing the
All right.
thing.
Okay, whatever. All right, I have a story about President-elect Trump. But you know what? He's acting like he's already president.
Yes.
You know, he's calling leaders and appointing people, and it's like he's already there.
Well, the thing is, that's what they do, is they talk to leaders and they appoint people.
But here's a story. Here's a story about a lovely lady who's dead. She's dead now. So she's not lovely anymore. She's kind of rotting. Anyway, President-elect Donald Trump accepted a call from, guess who? Taiwan's president, Tsai Ing-wen. You get out now. That's what she said. Anyway, Tsai Ing-wen. It's the first official contact between U.S. and Taiwanese officials for 37 years.
And they
that's
called
like,
him?
That's like even more than my age.
And so they called him the Taiwanese people?
Well, yes. Well, I'm getting to that. Now, of course, this is a problem for China, because China says that Taiwan is Chinese territory and not an independent nation. Do you remember 2 years ago, I was invited to Taiwan by my friend who's a top Taiwanese diplomat.
Yes.
And he told me about Taiwan. And he told me that when Chiang Kai-shek was the founder of Taiwan, when he left the mainland China, he stole Chinese artifacts and money and
I remember all
which
the
I
stories.
saw those things because he showed it to me. And he also told me that Taiwan was actually part of Japan. It was Japanese territory, and Japan created the roads and the infrastructure and all of that. And then after the war, when Chiang Kai-shek went with the nationalists, they killed all the native people in Taiwan, where they had native people there. And the Taiwanese went out very nice.
I remember all the stories.
So I just want to throw that in there. And Trump said, and I agree, it's hypocritical to shun Taiwan while we sell them weapons.
Well, then you're not shunning it if you're selling them weapons.
It's like,
Sorry.
you don't exist, but here's weapons.
You can't have one.
I actually agree
Well,
with Trump on that.
You can't. It has nothing to do with agree or not agree. You're not shunning it
No,
if you're selling it.
and the information is that the dispute between Taiwan and mainland China began after the losing side of China's 1949 Civil War fled to the island, that's Chiang Kai-shek, and declared itself the rightful rulers of China, and they are not. And so there's been tension between them. And President-elect Trump also congratulated President Tsai on becoming president of Taiwan early. This is a woman, first woman president of Taiwan. And the U.S. maintains unofficial relations with Taiwan, but does not support its bid for independence because they're afraid of China. They want Chinese power and technology, so that they do what China says. And it's interesting because the phone call indicates that Trump plans to establish his own foreign policy when he takes office rather than those in place. And I think that's good. He shouldn't follow what was there. But
Honey, he's a puppet. He'll do whatever they tell him.
But listen. Because, the reason that he took the phone call, he was ordering takeout. He's going to send his plane. He said, she said, this is President Tsai said, okay, what you want? We have don't bring,
Do
we
you
have
another
pork."
story?
What?
Do you have another story?
Okay, because it was a takeout order.
Do you have another
And the
story?
Chinese should not be upset about it. And plus he was getting his laundry done. So, okay, I said enough about that. Next, do you remember November 2nd, the kidnapping of this California mother who was held for 3 weeks, supposedly by Mexicans, and tortured and beaten and blah, blah, blah. And then she was found Thanksgiving Day. Do you remember that story?
That was the one they found her on the road?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I didn't know what happened to her.
Yeah, well, sheriffs are forced to deny that they think that this abduction case is a hoax.
Really?
Yeah. Personally, I don't believe the story. Why would they hold her for 3 weeks, brand her, torture her, and then let her go?
They branded her?
Yeah, with a message. There was like a message on her, but they won't say what the message was. She's a mother of 2. Her name is Sherry Papini. She's 34 years old. She was found chained on the side of the road near Sacramento on Thanksgiving morning, 140 miles away from where she lived. She vanished on November 2nd while out jogging. They said she was badly beaten, tortured, and even branded during her ordeal. Investigators have told one news outlet that there's still a very real possibility that something might be awry in the case. And they said, I don't know if the words ruled out can be used about whether it's a hoax or not.
No, why would she hoax such a horrible thing?
Well, let me tell you why. Police are still investigating her disappearance, and they're baffled why she was abducted, despite interviewing. She was branded, according to a statement, by her husband. Police say they're hunting 2 Hispanic females driving a dark-colored SUV armed with a handgun. So here's my question.
She was branded by her husband?
No, that's what he told the
Oh.
news. Look, you understand what I said to you?
Stewart, stop.
Okay. Why would they release her after keeping her for 3 weeks
I don't know.
and beating her and blah, blah, blah? Now, according to internet, and I don't know if this is true, she had a website where she was a racist and attacked Hispanic people and like used Nazi symbols and all kinds of things like
Doesn't
that.
sound like a 34-year-old mother of 2 who would do
But
such
did you see the
thing.
picture of her and her husband? They're like Mr. and Mrs. Aryan. Yeah. And I think that there's something odd with the whole story.
Well,
Personally,
maybe they'll tell us.
I don't believe the whole story. And something will come out in the future. Do you believe in global warming?
Of course I do.
You do?
Of course I do.
Should
So
I
what
call
I talk
you?
about
Should
every
I call
week.
you Hillary?
Every week I talk about global warming.
You do. Well, Hawaii is getting a 1 week long blizzard with 30 freaking inches of snow in Hawaii.
Yeah, but I think that's up on the mountain.
Well, hello, it's still Hawaii.
Yeah, they say that it gets snow, but normally not that much, because that's one of my
Okay,
stories.
do you want to undermine my story?
No, it's my story too.
Would you like to give your own
Because
story?
I have my story.
Okay.
So I know this.
Because it's a week-long snowstorm, dropping feet of snow. Yes, it's not impressive, but they said 22 to 32 inches and wind gusts of 47 miles per hour. Predicts snow every day next week. And according to this weather person, I haven't heard of more than a foot at a time, so 30 inches would be
It would be a lot,
unprecedented. And remember, they had snow in July. This is Hawaii in July. I don't care how high up it is.
Well, listen to me. As long as you're talking about weather, just let me tell my quick little weather story. And that is that there was snow in Dubai at the end of November. And Dubai...
It's not the first time either.
Well, it's pretty close to the first time. Dubai usually in November in their cool season is 68 degrees Fahrenheit.
Listen to me. I have been there during many times. It's freaking hot
I know.
all year long.
So normally it's 68 degrees Fahrenheit or I think 20 degrees centigrade. And normally they do not get snow. So,
no.
no.
But they had snow last year, remember?
Yeah.
In Dubai.
That's because of global warming.
Yeah, global warming.
And
Take
I
a globe
believe
and
in
heat it
global
up and
warming.
it snows. That makes sense to me.
This is why I tell you I believe in global warming.
Yeah, really. Now, I was looking at the news, and there are themes of triggers that I've noticed the last 2 weeks.
Okay.
For example, parents killing children and then themselves.
That's been happening for a while.
Wild animals attacking people. Face tumors being... All these people with big... I mean, how do you let that get like that?
I don't know, I haven't seen that story.
Oh, it's disgusting. That's been on the news like more, several times. Rape and sexual abuse.
Yes, and I have a rape story when we get to the end.
Okay, recounts for the election votes, which is being undermined anyway.
Yeah.
Blaming Russia for the American election results? Come on, seriously. Here's another, my favorite. Drunken passengers on planes causing problems, like smacking stewardesses, saying statements and like that. Road rage killings and beatings. This is a big thing now in the news every day. Teens committing suicide from bullying, like this one girl shot herself in front of her parents. Why didn't they stop her? Muslims being accepted by Americans.
Yeah, I've seen that quite often.
But this is like every day. Snowstorms and warm climates, you just said, and attacks on university campuses.
Yeah. That's why they need to do our protection techniques, deprogramming techniques, all these kinds of things, okay?
Okay, now you go.
All right.
Okay, I should say like the president. Okay, now you go.
Okay, so, anyway.
You want number 1 or number 2?
Stop. We're not
You want
talking-
fly light?
This is not poo.
Don't fly light? Don't fly light?
You're not funny.
It's hysterical. People there are dropping dead crying
No,
laughing.
it's not funny.
Yes, they are. Please write in that you cried laughing on the floor.
Anyway, I want you to kind of pick up where I had left off a couple of weeks ago. I was talking about the elections, and I mentioned how that Trump, even though supposedly, I still don't understand this election stuff because Hillary supposedly has 2.5 million ahead in the
I
popular
don't
vote.
believe that.
And they haven't done the electoral college vote until December 19th.
It's ridiculous.
However, Trump is now doing a victory, not a victory tour, but victory rallies. Now, to me, that sounds like Nazism.
First of all, BITCH, who ordered the recounts, all the states, Michigan, Pennsylvania, they all said, no, that's ridiculous.
Well, anyway, so Trump is doing these victory rallies. And so when he started off by mocking an ABC News reporter, he was accused of crying on the night in his presidential victory.
What? He was what?
He was mocking an ABC News reporter. He was accused of crying on the night of his presidential victory.
Over it.
Then he went on to say, we did have a lot of fun fighting Hillary, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, yes.
Well, no, because
We
it's
did
a
have fun.
show, dear. And the
I know,
thing
but it was
is,
fun.
it's not. And so to me, this is all about bullying people, and it's teaching people to bully other
Don't you
people.
think Hillary deserved it? She killed people.
Listen to me, they're all on the same team. They're cousins, their daughters are friends.
But we're cousins.
I'm going to ban you to the other room.
People want to hear me sing. They beg me
don't.
to sing.
Okay, so Trump goes on to say, we are going to appoint General Mad Dog Mattis as our Secretary of Defense. He thinks war is a hell of a hoot and some a-holes need to be shot. Apparently, he fought in Iraq and Afghanistan where his call-in sign was chaos and he likes getting shot at. And Trump calls him the closest thing to General George Patton that we have, and it's about time. Apparently, he has another nickname, which is Warrior Monk. And then in 2005, he was criticized when he declared it was, quote, fun to shoot some people and fighting was, again, a hell of a hoot. He says, actually, it's quite fun to fight them. It's fun to shoot some people. I'll be right up there with you. I like brawling. So this is what your president-elect is bringing into office. So this is not heading for a peaceful time, obviously. And then there was an op-ed piece that I thought was very good. And it was talking about how that Trump was elected on a wave of fake news, fake minority outreach, and an 11th hour email head fake by James Comey. And during the campaign, this guy claims that Trump lied with the ease of breathing, made promises he knew well he could not keep, positioned himself as a champion of the disaffected while imagining himself as a dictator. And Russia may have won in a new phase of the Cold War by dabbling in our hot mess of an election. And Trump nurtured an unhealthy bromance with Vladimir Putin. Then he went on to take aim at some fundamentals of our constitutional democracy by not only attacking the media but individual reporters, while also threatening to revoke American citizenship for the constitutionally protected act of flag burning, which of course I don't agree with, but people supposedly have the right to do that. Then this person claims that he's assembling a team of advisors made up of billionaires and bigots, homophobes and Islamophobes, climate change deniers, and white supremacy believers. David Axelrod called his budding cabinet a monster's ball, and that may be too mild a phrasing. During one of the debates, Trump boasted while referring to Clinton, I will do more for African Americans and Latinos than she can ever do in 10 lifetimes. So what I want to know is that positive or negative? Then he named as his chief strategist Steve Bannon, who helped to rebrand Nazis with a new name, alt-right, which sounds more like a computer command than a batch of fanatical racists clinging to poisoned ideas. For his attorney general, he's nominated Jeff Sessions, a man once denied a federal judgeship over charges of racism, who fought for public school funding inequity. in his home state of Alabama and has been a stalwart foe of immigrants. Then he claimed that he was going to be a real friend of the LGBT community and even unfurled a rainbow flag, but it was upside down, with the words LGBTs for Trump scrawled on it. But the British gay news service Pink News claims that every single Trump cabinet member so far opposes LGBT rights. Then, the self-professed genital grabber Trump said that he would be, quote, the best for women, but then he named an anti-contraception, pro-fetal personhood Tom Price to be Secretary of Health and Human Services. He claims he's going to drain the swamp in Washington, but his cabinet choices say that his plan is simply to replace murky water and with a smarmy ecosystem. Then he blasted Clinton for being owned by Wall Street, but he's assembling a cabinet that is a roster of the super wealthy, including at least 2 billionaires. So watch out for what's coming because it's scary. Then President Obama, who I've been talking to you about for some time, talking about Michelle will never run for office. So the more they deny this kind of tells me this must be what they're putting forward. So apparently there's already a social media campaign backing Michelle Obama for president in 2020, and I reported, but right now she has the best chance of any Democrat to win. In a Rolling Stones interview, Obama said, Michelle will never run for office. She is as talented a person as I know. You can see the incredible resonance she has with the American people, but I joke that she's too sensible to want to be in politics, unquote. Then he went on to talk on a radio show called Sway in the Morning to say Michelle does not have the patience or the inclination to actually be a candidate herself. That's one thing y'all can take to the bank, unquote. Then we have again David Axelrod, Obama's chief campaign strategist, who said in October about the First Lady running for office, quote, I would bet everything I own against that prospect. So the more that they talk about it, the more likely that that's what's in their plans. Or the more they deny it, I should say. And then we have the role of the First Lady is actually coming into question, and that came about because Melania Trump has supposedly said that she's going to delay moving into the White House when her husband takes office, and this could cost the New York City millions of dollars in added security and disrupted commerce. Now, first spouse is not technically an official position, so there's no salary for that role, but they do say that the past First Ladies have maintained a staff of federal employees, so that's taxpayer money. In 2010, that's 6 years ago, Michelle Obama's staff of 18 people was paid $1.5 million. Now, how about when Michelle Obama has flown all over the world? She's taken her daughter, she's taken her mother, she's taken her staff. That's cost the taxpayers a lot of money. And I thought this was interesting that Melania has already picked out her personal cause for the next 4 years, which is stopping cyberbullying, which I think is very interesting considering, in my opinion, Donald Trump has shown himself to be a big bully. So let's see what happens with that. Okay, following along, we have George Yancey, who is a professor of philosophy at Emory University. He's written several books, and he happens to be a black man. And he said apparently that students started sending him emails to inform him that his name appears on the Professor Watch List, which is a new website created by a conservative youth group known as Turning Point USA. The Professor's Watch List mission is to sound an alarm among those professors within academia who advance leftist propaganda in the classroom. Apparently it names and photographs 200 professors. The watch list appears to be consistent with the nostalgic desire to make America great again, which is Trump's slogan. And he says for many black people, making America great again is actually threatening because to them, yesterday wasn't so great and they're actually looking forward to the future. So this is his idea of it. He also says that it's a new species of McCarthyism, especially in terms of its overtones of disloyalty to the American public, and reminiscent of COINTELPRO, the secret FBI program that spied on, infiltrated, and discredited American political organizations in the 50s and the 60s. So, this professor says, it is dangerous to teach my students to love their neighbors, to think and rethink constructively and ethically about who their neighbors are and how they have been taught to see themselves as disconnected and neoliberal subjects, then yes, I am dangerous and what I teach is dangerous. So, all sorts of things going on. And then I just want to bring up at Standing Rock, it's still not really being covered by mainstream media, but it's all over social media. And what's interesting to me is the U.S. military veterans are now going to there, saying that they fought to protect their freedoms, and these people need protection. So some people are saying that there are now 15 to 20,000 people at Standing Rock, which when I reported this from the mainstream news, the last time they were saying maybe a couple of thousand. So again, mainstream versus what's really happening is an issue. And then one of the biggest news stories over the week was the Brazilian team that was unfortunately on the chartered plane. The chartered plane wasn't had a problem, and so the plane that they put them on reportedly ran out of fuel. So the pilot that crashed while flying the members pleaded for an immediate landing because the aircraft was out of fuel, and he wasn't given that. He is said, according to a voice on the tape, "We asked for permission to approach." He later says that the plane had a fuel emergency. So apparently during this 12-minute recording, the pilot also says that the plane had experienced total electrical failure and repeatedly requests flight vectors, which means they want to ask air traffic controller how to land. The controller tries to help but mentions other obstacles like another plane flying close, fuel on the runway, and so then the pilot is yelling 9,000 feet, vectors, vectors, and then the plane crashed. Now, Colombia's aviation agency said it would not confirm the authenticity of the recording, but he added that the company was investigating whether the plane, which was operated by a Bolivian charter company called Lamia, did run out of fuel. Aviation experts say that it is unsafe to fly a plane without at least 30 minutes of fuel reserves, and they're claiming that this plane barely had enough fuel to make it from point A to point B. And then one of the teammates who was not on not involved in the Colombian plane crash, claims that the players were assassinated and said this wasn't an accident. This particular player, Moises Santos, did not travel on the jet because of injury. Then he claims that the 36-year-old pilot of the plane was responsible for that. However, the pilot's family said that the pilot did everything he could to save lives. Now, what's interesting about this particular article is that the airline, La Mia Airline, was supposedly owned by this Bolivian pilot, so I don't think he was going to be crashing it. Anyway, lots of things going on, and I personally think it has to do with a ritual sacrifice of some kind, and then there was a history of air disasters involving sports teams listed right below that. In 1949, the Torino Soccer Club was killed. A Fiat airplane carrying 31 people killed 22 members of Torino, the soccer club that carries the name of the city. 1958, Manchester United on February 6th crashed as it was taking off from Munich's airport. 44 people were aboard, 23 died, including 8 players and 8 journalists. 1961, the United States figure skating team was killed. 1970, Marshall University football team was killed. 1972, Old Christians Rugby Union Club was killed. And then, in that particular one, it said that they were stranded at an altitude of more than 11,000 feet in frigid conditions. 16 passengers were ultimately rescued 72 days after the crash. They survived by cannibalizing the frozen bodies of fellow passengers. In 1977, the University of Evansville basketball team was killed. 1987, Peruvian soccer team was killed. 1993, Zambian national soccer team was killed. And now we have this tragedy. So to me, it sounds like a lot of ritual sacrifice, don't you think? Mm-hmm. Then, moving right along, we have, in the next frontier, we had talked about our Mad Dog Mattis being appointed. This is now all over the news that the next phase of the military is space war. In fact, a SETI senior astronomer warned the lack of U.S. military preparation in case of, guess what, an alien invasion. And the next story, I think, is also quite telling of what's happening with our society, because it's a new Dutch law has been proposed that would allow assisted suicide for healthy older people. This apparently, in 2001, the Netherlands became the first country in the world to legalize euthanasia for patients suffering from unbearable pain and had no prospects of a cure. Critics are now saying the proposal has gone too far because now they're allowing people not suffering from a medical condition to seek assisted suicide if they feel that they have completed life. Their health minister, Edith Schippers, read a letter to the Dutch Parliament saying that it's needed to address the needs of older people who do not have the possibility to continue life in a meaningful way, who are struggling with the loss of independence and reduced mobility, and who have a sense of loneliness partly because of the loss of loved ones, and who are burdened by general fatigue, deterioration, and loss of personal dignity. Let's see. Apparently now they hope to draft this law by the end of 2017 in consultation with doctors and ethicists, and also what they call a death assistance provider with a medical background. In the Netherlands, in 2015, euthanasia accounted for 5,500 deaths, or nearly 4% of all the deaths of that population. And this new proposal does not even cite a minimum age at which the law could be applied. There's a populist politician, Geert Wilders, who has argued that the Dutch have gone too far, and she said that this act could enable death of people who are lonely or depressed. And she said that we should combat loneliness and investigate indignity and focusing on our elderly, that is the best option. And Christian groups, of course, oppose this, saying that the myth is that it is purely individual choice while it affects the family, the community, healthcare providers, and ultimately society. Then it goes on afterwards, giving examples of people who have chose euthanasia. One was an alcoholic who was at the age of 41, convinced doctors that he basically couldn't be cured, so they killed him. Then there's a Paralympian who says she's not ready yet for euthanasia, but she signed her papers because she feels at some point she will be. And then a man who has problems with his sexuality because he's attracted to young men and adolescent boys. He's 39, and he wants to be euthanized. And then in Chile, a 14-year-old girl who suffers from cystic fibrosis has made an emotional plea to be allowed to die. She uploaded a video to Facebook on this past week asking the president to authorize her euthanasia, but the presidential spokesperson who actually addressed this said it's impossible to not be overcome by emotion with the girl's request, but it's not allowed under Chilean law, which is basically saying it's not that they wouldn't do it, it's just that they can't. And then there's a man who's advocating why suicide should be a human right, because if you can live, he said you should also be able to die, and he's calling this rational suicide. And what you might not know is that Justin Trudeau in April of this year introduced a bill to legalize assisted suicide in Canada. Now, the thing is the Nazis, when they did all their experimentation, a lot of that was getting rid of people who were a problem or burden on society. So the Nazis aren't coming and getting anybody, but they're setting up a system so that people can do it to themselves. And so nobody's going to do it to you. As I keep telling you, you're doing it to yourself. And now we also have a new marriage tax penalty, which says that unmarried couples can now deduct twice as much of their mortgage and home interest on their tax returns versus married couples. So this, again, there are more economic incentives to not get married, which again leads to the breakup of the family. And there are an increasing number of men who are whitening their skin, apparently, according to global studies. And this particular article focused on Asian people, saying that apparently it's quite prominent among Asians. And of course there are health dangers to that. And of course, my feeling is you should be who you are. And then there is a woman who's 22 that claims she has extraterrestrial DNA, and said that she was visited by a presence at 13 who explained her origin, who told her she was a star seed, which meant that her mother's eggs had been fused with alien DNA. And so again, I think this has to do with letting people know that we are not who we think we are. And I think you'll continue to hear more of this. And I've been also telling you about how rape is going to be a part of New World Religion. Well, this article was interesting. There's a movie called Last Tango in Paris. Many of you may have heard or seen that movie. And apparently there's a young woman in there who, one of the scenes is that she was raped. Well, apparently the director said in an interview that he had not warned this young woman, who was 19 at the time, of what was going to happen. And Marlon Brando, who appears in the scene, was 48 at the time. And this woman has since died. And now the director is saying that it was not planned, and that he wanted the actress to feel rage and humiliation. And back in 2007, this actress had told this paper that she did feel raped while taping the scene and had cried real tears. So, more imprinting. And my last story is about 2,000-year-old lead tablets found in a remote cave that researchers are claiming are genuine. The lead pages are bound in a ring binder and they were first discovered in 2008. And these tablets suggest that Jesus did not start his own religion, but was merely restoring a 1,000-year-old tradition from the time of King David. They also suggest the God that he worshipped was both male and female. And central to the books is the idea that Jesus promoted worship in Solomon's temple, where the very face of God was believed to be seen. And this is where the episode in the Bible where the moneylenders stories came from. One of the books bears resemblance to how the book of Revelations is described, as it has 7 seals. And this article goes on to tell you that in the Bible, Jesus is referred to as a tekton, which is usually translated as a carpenter, but it actually means a skilled craftsman and could refer to the skill of producing such works in metal, which we have been talking to you about. And while the codices do not contradict any of the established narrative, they place greater emphasis on the physical temple, of the belief in the divine feminine, and in Jesus' role in protecting a lineage of Hebrews rather than being the founder of his own movement. So, there's a lot of news going on out there as we get close the end of 2016. We're going to have more and more of this coming up, more disruption of how people feel, how they feel, how the world is viewed. They're getting everything set up for 2017 and 2018. That's my last story. Okay?
Okay.
So I want to ask all of you to be sure and like our Facebook pages. We do have our most intense class of the year coming up in January, a week-long class. That's a smaller class. Our spaces are limited. We still have a couple places open. If you're interested in coming, you need to contact us as soon as possible. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm done.
All right, so that's it. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.